Unlike our last chair, who never did figure that out.
Yes. Okay, I'd like to call this regular scheduled meeting of the Planning Board to order. Our first order of business will be to elect new officers. I guess we'll have a roll call first. Doreen.
Board Member Bartling. Present.
Present.
Board Member Bold.
Present.
Board Member Dusen.
Present.
Board Member Elrod.
Present.
Board Member Graham. Board Member Moore.
Present.
Board Member Ranville.
Present.
Board Member Rudnicki.
Here.
Board Member Samuelson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Commissioners, what I think we'd like to do every year, we have hold the elections for chairman and chair pro tem. So I think just to start off, in the absence of a chairman, is I'll take that role for this this part of the agenda. If you have recommendations for chair, why don't you just give them to me, and we will do a basically a vote on each one. So I
nominate Randy Duzman as chair.
Okay.
Does it require a second? I'll second.
Any other recommendations? Excellent. That makes it easy. Okay, so for chair, Randy Duzman. All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Excellent. All
Not
right.
voting for yourself, huh?
Okay.
Somebody.
If you'd like, Mr. Chairman, you could take over for Chair Pro Tem. Take nominations.
Are there any nominations for Chair Pro Tem? I'd like to nominate Commissioner Elrod. Do we need a second?
I don't know.
I second.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations?
Excellent.
Okay. All in favor, vote.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much.
Drawn out battle, huh?
Yeah, geez.
Thank you for
We
the
expected we
nomination.
had 45 minutes for this, so.
Do you want to change these?
Sure.
Oh.
Official.
Wow, they do that right away.
That was quick.
No turning back. Thank you, Doreen.
Now I'm supposed to know what I'm doing?
You're in charge.
We have a title now.
Do we have an agenda that I should have,
yeah.
that I forgot to print out? Well, we jumped right to the election of officers, but we have the minutes from March 11 to review. Are there any corrections or changes on the minutes from March 11? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from March 11th.
Second. All in favor?
Am I
Or
voting
opposed?
if I wasn't even on the board?
No, I can't vote because I wasn't at the meeting.
Vote.
Yeah.
So not being even on the board, do I vote?
You each had the copy of the minutes so that you can vote on them because you have seen them.
All board members can vote.
City attorney, yes.
Passes. This point, I guess we have scheduled or unscheduled appearances. I don't see anybody that's here. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the board? I would welcome the new board members, the alternates also. Welcome for volunteering your services and being a part of the board. There's, I think, a large change in the board, so we're all going to learn together. But our biggest part or effort right now is the comprehensive plan. So we'll be talking about that mainly tonight because I don't believe there are no public hearings tonight. So since there are no public hearings and we have done the general business already, are there any staff reports, comments that need to be presented?
Mr. Chairman, I also would like to welcome Scott Ranville and David Bolt as regular members, and then we also have Carrie Moore and LaDonna Bertline as alternates, and we look forward to working with all of you coming forward. The one thing I did want to mention as far as our agendas coming forward, one thing I wanted to put out to the Planning Commission is on April 22nd, that would be your next regular meeting night. We do not have a case coming forward, and the council has actually set up their own or set up a study session to discuss a couple of things that are very related to the planning board. One being to hear from the task force that the council put together on economic development, what a draft strategic economic development plan might look like. I think a lot of you saw the beginnings of the visioning process that the council went through, and I think there'll be a presentation on that final report. So what I would like to do is suggest that perhaps we cancel that meeting and that give an opportunity for the planning board to attend the joint meeting with, or the meeting with the city council on that night.
Will there be a chance to interact with city council, or is it just to observe, or?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be kind of wide open. However, I guess the technical rules of the study session is that's really the council and their invited guests is where the interaction occurs. But I'm sure there would be an opportunity to give input.
I think they welcome or are willing to hear any comments. Maybe there's a point where they open it up or something.
Yep.
Do we need to approve that as not having a meeting that night?
I don't think we need a formal action on that.
What does everybody think?
Let's start at 7.
I believe it does. I'll verify and get it out to everybody.
Will that be a study session in that room?
In this room right here.
Okay.
In the community room.
I think given what, actually we had this discussion last time we met, that we want to have greater visibility to some of the other plans that are taking place, so I think it's a great opportunity for us to get that visibility.
I agree.
Right, and I think at your last meeting you said May 6th would be a good night for reconvening of the council and the planning board, so that is being scheduled right now, so I would put that down on your calendar, specifically talk about the comp plan.
What was that date again? I'm sorry.
May 6th.
Is that a regular planning board meeting?
No.
It's actually not. It's a free week, actually.
Oh, okay.
Really?
That date's right?
Yeah, we have an odd week in April. So there's actually 2 weeks between the 22nd board meeting and the 13th board meeting. So we have an extra week in there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Would we, so given that the April 22nd meeting now, we're canceling that to have to join council, that doesn't give us a meeting in between now and May 6th? May 6th, when we would meet with council on our revised version.
It doesn't. Better get it all worked out tonight.
Correct.
No pressure.
We're not leaving. No. Should we decide after tonight how we feel about where we are?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So no board meeting on the 22nd. Instead, a it in with the council's work session. So they're doing that on a Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other reports or?
Nope. Oh, sorry.
Did you want to talk about some specific applications that the tablet has that that have been blocked? I've had some emails and discussion.
Yeah, we could have
So I
a
would
few
like
minutes.
a specific list of those, and IS has told us that we can sit down and discuss if there's a charge for those, exactly why they have been blocked, and whether they really need to be unblocked. So I need specific information on that.
And you don't have an updated report on where IT is with working out the bugs with email? I
Well,
haven't received an email since the last time.
no, and I found out there is a problem with the emails. There's a group, and the system seems to pick up whatever was last used or the most used, and so we're working on that. So I
Smarter than
will
us.
be I'm trying very hard to direct them mostly to your personal ones when it comes down to the agenda, until we get that all fixed so that I have that.
And just as a
Hopefully
note,
better.
I've been kind of experimenting with it myself since I've already, in my couple days, had emails deleted. But if you go to the web interface, the littletongov.org, and you log in there, all the emails are there, like, from what I can tell, forever, for at least for me.
They weren't previously, though.
They
'Cause
weren't?
they've been deleted and then added back, so they
Oh,
come
okay.
and go.
Okay, they come and go. Okay.
One of the things I think we had talked about was the camera. If we're out doing some work in the field, that we might want to take a picture of something and then share that with everyone, so the camera would be a good one to add.
I think it would be good to send Doreen an email with your comments on the features we'd like to have active.
It definitely helps to have something in writing so I can take that to the IS department.
And I know I need a little more training on how to use the PDF annotation. I can't even figure out how to load a file. So I'm not an Apple user, so that might be the problem.
I have the same problem. I'm not an Apple user. I tried the charging directly with my computer, Doreen, and that didn't work either. So I brought my computer in for you to take.
It has to go to the outlet. We had orientation a couple days ago, and they said you have to, the actual main unit has to go to the outlet.
I did that. That didn't work.
Okay,
Then
didn't work.
They told me to try the computer, and
Okay.
that didn't work either.
Okay.
Yeah, any of those
Be
kind of
easier.
things, just give it to me in writing,
Yep.
and that way I can keep track of it and sort of follow it a little more easily that way. And as for the, what was it, the emails disappearing, there is, Scott, you shared with me, and I will send
Well,
it.
Kurt was just saying that it's not always the case for, I guess, all the accounts. Or, well, at least for my
Yeah.
account, it had old emails there from 2 weeks ago.
They're back now, but
Oh, they're
for a
back
while
now.
they were gone.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
Technology is wonderful. I love it.
okay.
All right, any of those kind of things, give them to me.
I say my other IT find in the last weekend here is that when I have an attachment in an email, because I know the emails are going to get deleted, if you like touch and hold on the attachment, it pops up QuickBooks, I think it is, the Microsoft compatibility thing. So if you send it to that, it goes to there and it stays there, from what I can tell, forever. So you don't lose your attachments if you do that.
That's,
Yeah.
Perhaps
I think we'll have Scott,
or written instructions, because we'll forget that one.
Subcommittee. All right.
Our own study session on how to use
Okay.
the tablet.
All right.
all right.
Before we close that out, I think I want to open it up to our new members, both alternates and regular. Are there any questions that you might have in terms of how we operate or anything? that you might want to ask right now?
I go right to a sensitive topic.
Oh, sure. Yes.
All right. Well, just from watching on TV, and I mean, obviously I wasn't here, so I don't know the inner room dynamics and all that kind of stuff. But from watching on TV, it seemed like the group would occasionally get off topic, or what got to my opinion was there was like a one-person veto. So if one board member just really had a really strong opinion, they could kind of kill that particular topic. I guess as a new chair, I would maybe recommend or hope that you could have some sort of voting process, so that if someone has a strong opinion, you just put it up for vote, see what the general consensus is, and then move on very quickly instead of letting the whole meeting kind of delve on that one topic.
Good comment. We want to keep things moving and not dwell on one thing too long. Make sure it's relevant. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have a late request for a address unscheduled.
Okay, I think we're still there. So if you could approach the microphone and state your name. And
so it's okay, you don't need to vote to hear.
No.
Calm down, Pam.
We're in kind of an open session right now.
Well, I appreciate it. Planning Board, thanks for hearing me. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live at Crestline in Nevada in downtown Littleton. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the update to the comprehensive plan. It has immediate use in deciding the future of Littleton, and it's going to be used to help prospective developers and city and staff and decision makers and citizens to understand and decide about development choices in the city. So I appreciate your efforts to produce this plan so far. But I'm here tonight to provide expectations for the comprehensive plan. And I'm wondering if the projection thing is able to be used, or...
Is the projection equipment on?
Yep. Go ahead.
So, I'm going to get my glasses. Based on my work experience, I believe that I'm going to present some ideas that I think are helpful to your work to produce the update. I also believe that the plan has to meet these kind of expectations in order to best serve Littleton. And I think that's all what we're here for and what we want to accomplish. So I hope you perceive this input as helpful and productive, though it may sound challenging at this point in the production of the plan update. So the city is considering almost 2,000 residential units in 5 development applications to have already been approved. There's no reason to believe that these are going to be successful developments, and there was a dearth of data provided to the council and to the citizens at the time that the rezoning requests were made. So a plan and the zoning that results from the plan provides data that helps us make these decisions. And that's what I'm looking for in the comprehensive plan update. So I want to point out, making a plan costs money, it takes time, and it can be good or bad. Plans are some of many tools that are used to manage a project or an organization, and a plan's function is to document goals and objectives or outcomes, and it has to document feasible implementation paths to achieving them. In other words, visions and goals are not enough. A plan must document with rationale objectives. What do we want to do? Scope and schedule. How do we get there, and when do we do it? How much does it cost? How do we afford it? And what are the risks, and how do we mitigate them? It's an output document produced by a continuing management process. It doesn't end when the thing is published. And the city comprehensive plan has to flow down to more specific documents. That would be zonings and ordinances, but also the neighborhood plans. I think I was here a month or 2 ago, And the idea was not to let the comprehensive plan include this kind of quote, quote, detail. Without this kind of detail, the comprehensive plan won't be useful and it won't serve its purpose. So I drew a concept of a process to make the plan. And what I've shown up there is an infrastructure forecast, a budget forecast, and both of those should be available from the city now. And then a traffic or transit study or projection or forecast, and a housing market and a commerce market study or projection for the metro area and for Littleton within that metro area. There's also inputs from the public and from the board and from the staff. And there's also comparables, the Denver metro area plans and other cities' plans. Those all have to come in and get integrated. That's made easier by the first box up there, which is before you do any of these things, you've got to agree on assumptions. What the timeline is, what the waypoints are going to be, and other assumptions before you ask people to do this work. So when you get all that back, you integrate it, you produce a draft, then you get public feedback and do review, and then you can actually start to produce a plan. So these can't be deferred to neighborhood plans. It's not possible for a neighborhood to produce a meaningful traffic or housing projection at a neighborhood level without understanding what the city's impacts are within the metro area. The comprehensive plan has to do that, and it's not a comprehensive plan if it doesn't. So, and I just thought of an example while I was waiting on Santa Fe at the intersection of I-25. If there was a plan to do that highway work, would it be an adequate plan if it didn't have a timeline? Or if it said, let's improve the merging of Santa Fe with I-25? Or, well, let's use good engineering practices. Let's have a family-friendly highway and no weird advertising. That would not be an adequate plan. An adequate plan has to use a timeline, start and end dates, milestones, costs, engineering requirements, detailed descriptions of final configurations and penalties if goals are not met. So that's my pitch. I think that the City Council is asking you to produce something quickly. And my suggestion is to produce something with placeholders to do this work and fill it in. And set out a management plan within the city to get this data added to it. If you have any thoughts or reactions, comments, criticisms, questions, I'd like to hear them.
I appreciate your feedback. Yes.
Because it's unscheduled, we really can't engage in a discussion on this topic right now.
Can we just ask for copies of our diagrams? Sure. If you could leave the copies of your diagrams, we could look at them at a future date.
Okay, great. Thanks. And welcome to everybody who's new. I think this is kind of a weird way to get you introduced, but thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Okay. I don't believe there are any other items on the regular scheduled agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn the board meeting? Moved. Second?
Second.
Place your votes. It's approved. So now we're going to move into a study session with Dennis to talk about the comprehensive plan.
As I think you got a little discussion earlier, we would love to be able to finish up this kind of umbrella section, the first few pages that we've been looking at. If not, that's fine too, but it would be wonderful if we did that as a kind of a milestone. What we've got tonight is copies I sent out to you, and I have hard copies for anybody who'd like them as well of what I sent out, which is the discussion that we had at the last planning board study session 2 weeks ago, and I've incorporated that into the draft. So the first few pages that have that material incorporated into it, And then we stopped at that point, and the remaining sections include the comments by Councilman Taylor and Councilwoman Cole that we were looking at and considering in the discussion. I also have comments from Karina. She talked at the last meeting in terms of, couldn't we in the vision statement kind of blend the two formats that we were looking at, both more of a prose format and secondarily as a kind of a list. And so she's provided that for us as well as some other comments. So I've got copies of that for everyone. And then Mark has copies too of some comments and editorial changes that he's talking about as well. So we've got a lot of material to kind of blend here tonight. Probably wisest, I think, to I'll hand out the copies for anybody who needs them, for the hard copies for the full document, and then I think if we look at that first and then look at Karina's, I think, because it's the first section, it's the vision statement. So look at that as the first thing that we consider, and then we'll have to be comparing as we go through. Mark, for your material, I haven't seen it yet, but is it more editorial? Is it something we do after the fact, or do you want to do it during the discussion?
Take your pick. What I did was I just couldn't read it with all the comments from council members and Dennis's comments. I just boiled it down to the actual documents. We could look at it in total, and then my wife and I did some editing, tried to straighten up the format so it's the proper format. So that's what I'm handing out to everyone. You want one too?
So are there two different documents here? We got three.
Yeah, so take
Okay. I thought that was just a reiteration of the one we had, so I passed that on.
Is what you dealt with last time.
Well, and just to throw into the mix, I mean, I have comments as well. Just I've been putting them in electronically. I didn't realize I was supposed to email them out to people. So
Probably not. It should go to Dennis.
I have one.
Do you need one?
okay.
Yeah, I got that.
I passed it on. I thought it was
Oh, that's right.
a continuation of what we already had seen.
I think I have the one they gave us last time.
So just real quick comment that you made just now, Scott, should be made known to all the new members. Typically when we correspond, we send a correspondence to Dennis, and then he distributes it to us. I think that's how we're supposed to do it or something. We're not supposed to communicate.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I meant. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so if you'll find the one that has just the gray on the front cover, the green and gray, so City of Littleton Comprehensive Plan, that is the copy that we started dealing with last time. And then we had changes that the board was recommending in those first 3 pages, and I've incorporated those into this. So you don't see green or red or yellow or anything on the first 3 because we've actually incorporated those changes. So we're looking at starting with that material with this start April 8th edited draft on page 6. So, okay. And then Karina went through and made some changes, as she talked about at the last meeting, for the vision statement. And we have that in her draft, which says, edits by Karina. Okay. And it's on, the first thing is on page 4. And then she had some other comments and questions along the way, too, that we could deal with as we go through.
So I actually only have 2 recommended changes, and then the rest are more comments or questions. So I think as we go through reviewing the pages, I can bring up those comments or questions along the way.
And the second recommended change, I believe, is in the material we hadn't covered last time. Okay. So the only change that we had recommended by you was the vision statement itself. So we can go through that maybe first, I think.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody totally confused now as to where we are? Okay. So I think if you go into Karina's document and onto page 4, I think you'll kind of see where we are.
So just to give some background to the new commissioners, so we had gone back and forth on this. Our original vision statement was in a paragraph form and tried to incorporate all of these different elements. And then we had received feedback from Peggy Cole to put it in bullets so it was much more easily scannable. My recommendation is what you see in gray, which really combines a little bit of the two as far as format. But the reasoning behind this is, I think, even before we start creating bullets of things to emphasize, we need to be able to stick to or be able to easily convey in a sentence what the vision of Littleton is. And so this is my attempt at doing that. And so I'll just read it. We see Littleton as being a community that embraces its authentic small-town qualities while enjoying the advantages of a metropolitan area. Our city should continue to exemplify and promote a sustainable economy, environment, and society. Littleton will build on its history and be home to people of all ages and background, promote a vibrant economy for individuals, businesses, and the city as a whole, and recognize the importance of its human and natural resources as the impetus that will change Littleton's future. So that was my recommendation.
You have phrases that appear elsewhere in the document. Are you taking them out of other areas and putting it in the prologue? Or do you continue to have them in the same phrases in the bulk of the document?
So there was no change to any of the phrasing, so I tried to keep the same elements that were there, both from our original recommendation as well as what Peggy recommended. So this should support what we see in the rest of the document. So the rest of the document should provide further detail supporting this.
Karina, I believe this is actually parallels what the board had initially as a paragraph form more than what Councilwoman Cole, because she actually, Councilwoman Cole proposed some changes to the language itself, as I recall.
So what were her changes, I think?
I think what you've got is more consistent with what was written originally by the board.
So what you did is you took what's above, bullets above, and then rewrote it in the highlighted text that you have below.
Yeah, and I'm actually going back to my old notes. So there were, when we had it in a paragraph, there were some things in the paragraph that were then redundant on the comment from Peggy Cole. And so I chose what I felt should be called out as bullets, just because they, to me, felt like a subset of this discussion of history, maintaining the past while still moving forward, whereas the overall paragraph up above is really more of that statement that at any point in time someone can go into the community and say this is what Littleton stands for, and here are some elements. So it's the first sentence is really to say Littleton is a community that embraces its authentic small town quality. So we had lost authentic somewhere along the way. I felt strongly that should come back in while enjoying the advantages of a metropolitan area. So if we just stop there alone, it begins to convey what our sense or how we distinguish Littleton as a city.
So from what I'm seeing here, it looks like bullet point number 3 above, the embrace the 21st century phrase is maybe the only thing that I'm seeing so far that's missing in the rewrite. I guess any particular reason why to remove that? Because to me that phrase it really caught my eye, because trying to, I guess, move forward and not be stuck back technology-wise or any other way-wise, and that to me looked like a very important phrase.
So it seems like some wording was left out too, like family-friendly, livability, diversity, and progress, which kind of goes back to the 21st century statement.
Oh, there it is, family-friendly.
So some of those, though, we do in the rest of the document, bring forward again family-friendly.
I'm just looking at this page here.
Yeah, I guess, one of the things that I struggled with, if the vision statement is not something that you can easily memorize and call it, your elevator speech, then it gets lost. And again, a lot of the more detail or elaborating on certain elements, for me, should come into play later in the document.
Do I have to memorize this?
At least the first or second sentence.
It's a test later.
In your own words, but.
Okay.
I tend to agree. I like how you put it back into a kind of an opening paragraph. I kind of just like the fact that that's a vision opening paragraph. And I like how the bullets have been reduced to kind of a concise overview of what's above I do tend to agree that embrace the 21st century seems appropriate. It's a little forward-thinking. It kind of talks about how we're going to push we're going to be open to change. That's what we talk about later, which is a 21st century thinking idea. And then the only other thing I have is the word diversity might be integrated somewhere that helps to be more all-encompassing in terms of the types of families and residents and professionals and lifestyles and everything. But it's not so specific that it pinpoints one type of group. So I would possibly suggest that one of the bullets just be embrace the 21st century right off the bat. And that Littleton will build on its history and embrace the 21st century, then be home to a people of all ages, backgrounds, and and something about diversity. That would be my recommendation.
Well, I think the all ages and background kind of includes the
Covers
diversity
that?
to me.
I think so, too.
You're right, all ages and backgrounds, so.
I think that's a good recommendation.
I do like the word family friendly, though. That's I missed that before, but that's one of,
Yeah.
I guess, the words that I really appreciate. If we could get family friendly.
We do have small town in the paragraph, that's good. So I think in wanting to move this along, I think we need to come to some agreement fairly quickly on each of these sections. And so one way, well, we're not in a meeting, are we? This is just a discussion.
Right.
We don't vote on things.
Well, you can if you want to. I mean, it depends on, if you can reach consensus, that's the ideal.
Okay.
If you feel like you need to vote, you can do that as well. It's not a formal vote, but you can take basically what's a straw vote.
Okay.
And in order to move it forward.
Well, I'm going to throw out the idea that we add the bullet, embrace the 21st century, and we add a family-friendly in there with the, where would it be, the first bullet or the second bullet there, after embrace the 21st century?
Sure.
Be a home to people of, we don't want to isolate family-friendly as the main group.
Right. So a community, I mean, words like community, small town, people think of that as family-friendly. I mean.
Well, what if you put it in the second sentence in the opening paragraph? So our family-friendly city should continue to exemplify and promote.
But one of the debates that we have, it's not just about focusing on just a family. It is family-friendly, but it also is
Young professionals.
It's
Retirees,
retirees. So it's much more than just a focus on family-friendly. It's an important effort, but it's.
And that's why we cover people of all ages and background. I mean, that covers families.
I think between community, small town, people of all ages and background, it's.
Yeah, my thought on embrace the 21st century is that it's kind of a duh. That's what we're already doing. We're saying that here. Our city should continue to exemplify, promote a sustainable economy, environment, society. Those are the 21st century ideals that we're looking at already, and we mentioned that several times in here. So I don't know that we need to add embrace the 21st century.
Okay, any other comments on that? I would adopt Karina's edits for myself. I would agree with those, unless there's any other thoughts on that.
Well, again, all these, the phrases that are highlighted here occur elsewhere in the document we're looking at.
Right.
Are we taking all those phrases out in the following pages and putting them in the front? Is that the plan? I mean, some of this wording is exactly what's said on page 6 or page 7. If you look through it, you'll find them.
Well, isn't it just a rewrite of those bullet points?
I'm sorry?
Trying to get rid of the pure bullet points and make it part paragraph, part bullet points?
I think well, how many times are we going to go back and say bullets, non-bullets, narrative, bullets, narrative, A, B, C, D? Eventually, we're editing by committee here, and we're never going to get anything done. This is getting preposterous.
So to me, I see the vision as not a list of everything that you're going to see in the document.
Right.
Okay. I see the vision of what, it's a description of what we are how we're trying to describe what Littleton is without having to, again, provide a book behind it. So it is intended to be more about that visionary statement. So,
but just be aware that as we go through this, a lot of this is repeated in the document on, like, say, 6, 7, or 8. We got to get rid of it there. We're just babbling on, repeating ourselves. Agreed?
So you're saying that
There's no problem emphasizing things by saying them once or twice more.
Well, in there, be home to people of all ages and backgrounds. I'll guarantee you 6, 7, or 8 is almost the exact phrase. So,
So are you saying that the bullets that we do have are not repeated in the document somewhere else?
we do. We are repetitive. We've taken items out of 6, 7, and 8 and dumped them in the vision.
No, I'm saying on the
They're in these bullets here.
on the bullets that
And she reworded these bullets.
were above, the ones that we already had.
I don't have any problem with ones we already have.
Isn't that what she summarized?
Okay, we're keeping the bullets, and then she has an additional paragraph.
No,
here.
get rid of the
deleted.
bullets.
You're taking
Yeah,
all those bullets out?
And rewriting it as below.
and
my.
restating it.
You don't think it covers the same material?
No. Okay, I got to reread it and see what it is.
Okay.
I thought we'd gone over this so many times, and
Yeah, it is a wholesale change, but we do need to,
For me, it's all new.
well, for us, it's revision 7 here.
Yeah, again, I do think it's more consistent with what you had before we looked at Councilwoman Cole's revisions. I think what Karina has written here is very consistent with the version before. So very similar language to that, whereas we added some language with Councilman Cole. So.
Yeah, and I think I was at the last meeting, and I observed that a consensus was that we didn't want to have just bullets, that they wanted to have kind of a combination of the two, and this embraces that, I would say.
So, Mark, if you could reread it, really what I tried to do was capture the same essence, but just position it a little bit different. But if you feel there is any big gaps in capturing that essence.
Well, I need to compare
Yep.
old and new.
Yep.
right, on a prior version, the vision statement was a paragraph.
Right.
And after our meeting with the council, the comments received from them, it converted to bullets. So really, the bullets are actually a change from our original. I prefer, personally, having part of that paragraph as our vision statement, going back to the paragraph format. I don't mind having a few bullets afterwards, as long as it maintains the same ideas in the vision.
Someone that's just pretty much reading all this for the first time.
Mike, Rob.
As someone that's just reading this for, pretty much the first time, not having looked at it 10 and 20 times, I think it's well written, it's succinct, and it's comprehensive. It's all.
Which version?
It's all there. Karina's.
Karina.
This last one.
Yeah, I like it too. I like the fact that it's only like 2 sentences. I mean, if it was like 10 sentences, I'd say no, but only 2 sentences and a couple bullet points. I kind of like that balance.
And I think what Karina said too, the elevator speech I think is an important one. Is it something you can get so you really remember what it is and you can express it well, and other people can really visualize what it is too. I think it does a good job of it, so I hope it does.
In order to move on, I would like to propose a motion that we approve Karina's as written.
Second? Or is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, so we're voting on adopting the wording that's highlighted in the Karina's
So we just going to do
version.
like a hand vote so that they can vote, or?
They can't vote.
Oh, but this is not a,
Oh, it's not, yeah, that's right.
so you want to do hand votes, so
Hand
that way
vote.
we get everyone's input, or?
Fine with me. All in favor? Hand. Opposed? Motion carries. So we're going to go with the highlighted text on the vision. Are there any other comments you want to go over, Karina, that we can?
Well, can I interject a few comments on just on the introduction section here?
Okay.
Because as I was reading it
we're done.
pretty much for the first time, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how the document flows and where everything is. But my thoughts on this vision is that we mentioned things like all ages, and then the triple bottom line, the sustainability, and the last bullet point, or what, I don't know where it is in Karina's here, I guess the last sentence, or the second sentence. So all ages and sustainability is mentioned here in the vision, but I didn't really see it that frequently throughout the rest of the document. I'm just wondering if we mention it in the vision, it seems to me it should be a little bit more prominent in the rest of the document. So that was just my thought on this initial vision here.
So specifically sustainability
And then all ages.
and all ages.
Like I didn't see a whole lot of bullet points throughout the rest of the goals and strategies that were mentioning sustainability topics or all age topics to me.
Right. So we'll have to address that as we move into the appropriate goal. Are there any other comments on the, before we leave the visioning page?
Well,
Okay.
just a
Oh, sure, Mark.
vision for the future of Littleton. It needs to be in all capitals. That's in my editing comment page.
Okay.
And then the bullet point should have capitals for be home. B should be capitalized. Promote, P should be capital P, and recognize should be capital R.
Great. That's right.
Did you get that, Dennis?
Yes, sure did.
Got that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And a colon after and. Littleton will build on its history and colon.
Okay.
Page 5, you have a comment on development. Karina?
So this was more of a question. So what we have here as one of our goals under the goals and strategies is number 6, develop a master plan for outdoor-related improvements and programs. So my question is, would this be a parks and open space master plan, and does one exist for the city?
I think when we were having that discussion, we were really thinking broader than that. We were thinking all land uses
Right.
for those spaces, that we might think about more active uses, mixed uses. How do we actually, as well as the real passive and wildlife preserving uses. So we're really thinking everything that's possible in that environment is kind of what we're thinking. That's specifically directed towards outdoor-related activities and interests. So.
And so if we make a statement here that we need to develop a master plan for outdoor-related improvements, it would be in addition to the comp plan. So just like we have a neighborhood plan, a
Another
corridor
element, I
plan,
think, right.
then we'd have this would say, then you have to develop an outdoor master plan.
Or it might be part of, as we do the South Platte corridor, it may be just part of that. I don't know how we proceed with it, but it needs to be something that we really focus on, given how important it's been, I think, to the board and to the kind of response we've been getting.
To me, if we're calling it a master plan, it spans across all, as opposed to just an element within.
Yeah, we might want to change that just because you're right. I mean, it's a little confusing because a master plan is done by South Suburban Parks and Recreation, which has the district, which covers more than just Littleton. And so they have a very special focus. And I think we were thinking something beyond that in terms of just the parks and open space as it's managed by South Suburban. We were thinking more in terms of how do we really take advantage of that, how do we integrate it into the community. So it's a little different focus than I think what they look at. So probably you're right, we may want to change that, the terminology for it. So.
That's one of my overall comments or thoughts is using words that imply action. So if we say develop a master plan, does that mean there's a document at the end of this document that's an action plan on what we're telling ourselves to do?
Yeah, I think we're thinking, like we did with the downtown plan, we'd want to have some priorities for what the implementation is. So, and how does it fit together? So what do we do next? Absolutely. And what fits on one another? So it's kind of a puzzle in terms of what you do.
Right, so we need to be careful with the words we use that imply that we're going to do something.
Right. In this case, I think the original thought was we would be doing something like this, that we would be looking at all the open space, all the potential we have in the city, and say, you know, how do we best use that? The areas along the river that are close to downtown, how do we best use that? What's the program for that? Other areas that already have a program in place could be incorporated fairly easily. And we know that that's going to be a wildlife habitat. We know that that's going to be a park. But really trying to look beyond what we look at traditionally in terms of parks and open space.
I don't know that it belongs here.
And I would argue that it does, I guess, just because it is so land use related. It's so related to what we've been talking about in terms of active uses. And when we've been saying that the river is our front door, the river is our beachside property, we really talk about that in terms of development potential, in terms of what the focus of the community is. And so it really is much more than, I would argue it's very related to the master plan because it is so land use related.
So, and the reason I make that statement is, so I can go either way, so let me just talk through that. So if we're trying to articulate that we need to make our outdoor spaces more engaging and active, which is what we do in this whole section. We call out certain things that we should do in order to make them more engaging or active. So it's either that's enough, what we have in 1 through 5 should be enough to provide the right level of guidance in the bigger, broader sense or areas. And if it is not, then the 6 would be accurate, and it actually would be accurate to call it a master plan, and it is much more comprehensive and would include the parks and private spaces and et cetera. So by having it here, it would imply that 1 through 5 is not enough, and therefore we have to develop a master plan.
Yeah, and I guess I think the thought was that 1 through 5 are individual actions and directions, and 6 would pull those all together, coordinate that.
Then there should be, so then it does say a master plan. So
yeah,
master
we treat the South Platte as the city's most important natural street, or natural asset, can't read C, sorry. Improve the trail network, encourage new developments. What are your priorities for those things? How do they work with one another is what the master plan should be telling us, I think. So if we just do one, if we just do improve the trail network by itself and that becomes the focus, it doesn't necessarily achieve our goal in terms of really trying to make the best use of all these assets. It's one part of that, but it's not the whole thing. And so the master plan, whatever the word is that we want to use for that, was that coordinating document, that coordinating process and thought.
Perhaps it really belongs more, if we do talk about implementation, I think it does kind of disrupt the flow where we're specifically talking about specific improvements and then put a plan in place to plan. Mm-hmm. And I get really nervous when I see a plan saying create a plan. And also, I mean, who's the major stakeholder? It's really South Suburban. So could City of Littleton strike out on its own and do a master plan for all outdoor open spaces?
For the stuff that's, I think we could include South Suburban, but the thought has been that we were going to do look at open space and recreation opportunities above and beyond what they would look at typically. We would be looking, they would not, for example, look at how do we activate the riverfront close to downtown so that it actually has restaurants and living facilities and offices. That's really not in their focus at all. That really is something the city would be looking at doing. And so it really does lap over with South Suburban, absolutely. But it really is a different focus, and that's really what I think the board's been talking about. So.
I guess I would also interject that the South Suburban Park and Rec District doesn't really build a lot of trails. They maintain them. The Park Foundation builds the trails, and they don't really, they aren't really tied to the South Suburban Park and Rec District in itself anyway, so.
So, yeah, either way you want to do it, we can work it.
I'm fine with leaving it as it is.
Fine with that.
Everybody fine with it, or?
Fine.
Okay,
Go ahead.
next.
Consensus?
Give a comment. Diane has a comment. Oh, LaDonna.
LaDonna.
I guess it didn't clarify to me exactly where this plan starts and where the South Suburban's plan ends. When you were just talking about the development along the riverfront, as one of the aspects of what you want to achieve, I consider that development and land use versus, open space, trails, recreation, and that kind of thing. So in my mind, I was still trying to differentiate the two.
Well, and maybe that's what we talk about. Maybe we develop some kind of coordinating document for all land use related, outdoor related improvements and programs, or something to that effect. I'm not sure that does it yet either.
Well, perhaps maybe some language can just be added to say how this master plan is different than, what South Suburban planning is going to be doing, so that at least you're not duplicating efforts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, because that's exactly what my question was. Isn't this the South Suburban plan? So maybe it's, if we're going to keep here, develop a master plan for, so it's almost like we have to really put greater definition around outdoor related, so it includes public and private space, so that it alludes to it being beyond South Suburban.
Or tie it to Littleton, because the South Suburban is a much bigger area. Do we have a parks plan?
South Suburban does, yeah.
Does the city have any?
City does not,
No. And the city has no recreational programs specifically? It's all South Suburban, correct?
Right. The city does own some of the parkland, but most of the parkland is owned by South Suburban, but all the management is done by South Suburban. So.
Then I guess I see it as a Littleton master plan to identify the parks and open space resources available as a way of seeing how we can tie into it and link it through trails and sidewalks.
But this plan would also include our vision for restaurants along the river and private development,
So, yeah,
not just public
improvements and
parks and
programs,
recreation.
yeah.
But up here is talking about the things that we're doing. This is an outdoor Littleton, right? So we're talking not just about the things that, not overlaying completely with South Suburban, but developing our own, perhaps in conjunction with South Suburban's Parks and Recs, the other things that we want to see in an outdoor Littleton.
Like for example, just to help clarify, let's say, for example, you maybe created, I don't know, some sort of standard that says any new restaurant should have outdoor patio seating. Would that kind of fit into the sort of things that might go into this sort of master plan, or no?
Could.
Perhaps open space and adjacent land use development.
I think that's the intent, though.
Yeah, so the adjacent land use development might make it a little bit clearer.
Good.
It's getting fairly complicated to have in a comp plan. I'm wondering if we should take it out.
That's possible.
Would others support taking it out?
Just leave that for implementation.
I'm still a bit fuzzy on it, so I can go either way.
I think what we're debating here is what is encompassed, what would be within this master plan, and I think that's what we're struggling to identify now.
And maybe we should take it back from master plan and just talk about coordinating these efforts, or having some kind of idea of how this all works together.
Right, I see that because more policy-oriented, so that when a developer looks at the comp plan, they see that we want them to coordinate with adjacent open space or adjacent resources, or that their development should have some relationship to these items above.
And item 3 says that, encourage new development to include inviting
Right.
outdoor gathering and activity places.
That's really what we want. We want the developer, the future projects, to look at this and get some guidance as to what we want them to do. And item 3 does that, or item, what did you say, 5?
3.
3 does that.
I mean, the overall goal says it, more generalities.
Maybe we should leave it out.
Let's take it out.
Delete, everybody?
Anybody opposed to taking it out? Okay, let's take it out.
I have a question before we move on from B. Don't shoot me. It says up in the paragraph, make these resources as available to the public as possible while protecting and enhancing the natural resources. Yet I don't see any strategy for protecting those resources. And that seems important.
I'm sorry, where is it?
It's goal number 1 in outdoor Littleton, that last sentence,
Oh, okay.
while protecting and enhancing the natural resources.
So D under 1 says protect and enhance the rivers, most
Wait, am I
natural
looking at
resource, but
I'm looking at Karina's. Am I looking at the right one? Under B, goals and strategies for an outdoor Littleton.
and then under strategies 1D, do you see that?
Thank you.
But that is only specific to the river.
Right. You know, just as I read more residents going down there and using it and renting boats and doing things, I, start picturing litter and those sorts of things. So I guess just something to make sure that that's important, that we highlight that. I don't know what the strategy is, so that's the problem.
So what is your comment, suggestion?
Well, just that I wanted to make sure it wasn't forgotten, but I did miss D, so strike my comment.
I think, given that it's in the goal, that sets the premise that it should be implied in all of them, even if it's not specific. Although, of course, it was specified, especially so for the river, given the significance of it.
Yeah, D clarifies
Yes,
protecting the river.
But it doesn't talk about the canal and city parks and open space and
Right.
trails and everything else involved, so
And we talked about
that's a
the
good
Highland
comment.
Canal being at risk.
Well, I think we want to protect all the resources, so.
I'm fine with it being in the goal because making it a goal implies that that is expected across all strategies.
Across the board, and
Yeah.
no specific strategy is needed to do that, which is reasonable. Okay, move on.
So let's finish this.
By the way,
Mark?
yeah, the opening paragraph under goal number 1, my edits just make it a little more narrative, so some small edits. Just if we're going to do more of a narrative in our vision for the future, we perhaps should do that with this whole document to make it uniform.
So your edits are in red?
My edits are in red.
Okay. So Dennis, you can review those and
Great. Thanks, Mark.
apply them.
Okay.
So Karina, you have a couple more.
Yeah, I'll try to go quick. So I just, on page 6, number 3, opportunities to capture revenue from both the internal and external retail markets. I just don't know what that means.
There are some vague statements, strategies. I know that a couple of the commissioners commented about a couple of the strategies. Their comments were, what does this mean? So I think we better figure out what it means.
Yeah, and now, and the intent is to say that we want to make sure that people who live in Littleton can shop in Littleton, and we get the revenue from that. It's kind of the bottom line, that we are able to capture that. But we'd also like to import revenue. So we would like to import revenue from people who live around Littleton to come and shop here. So that's what the intent of that is to.
So is that number 7? Look at, because as I kept reading, I was wondering if 7 captures that.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Yeah, it's true. That one says that it doesn't speak as much in terms of revenue, I guess. 3 is talking specifically about revenue. 7 is focused more on goods needed and desired. So it's kind of certainly related. So part of the complaint we get is that you can't buy shoes in Littleton. So
if I can buy it in Littleton, I create revenue for Littleton.
Sorry?
So number 7 is provide the services and goods that I can purchase in Littleton as opposed to going outside of Littleton, which to your point means revenue for Littleton.
Right.
Maybe we combine 3 and 7, because I think 7 kind of provides some of that context of how you generate the revenue.
Okay, good.
I'd say goods and services and not just goods in 7.
And then,
But I think we want to capture some external retail markets. So you're saying combine that into
because-
7?
Well, I guess the word external seems strange to me. Do you want to say something like tourists or?
No,
Or
surrounding
no?
neighborhoods, basically,
No.
what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we'd love people who shop in Highlands Ranch to come here, people who live in Centennial,
Okay.
people who live in unincorporated Jefferson County to be able to shop here. And so we don't, it's just a tremendous potential resource for us, financially for the city.
So imported shoppers.
I'm not a economics guy, but is it proper to say capture the buying power of adjacent communities?
Sure.
Do you want to add even more through retail, entertainment, and cultural?
Cultural events.
Events or markets or
Yeah, we want to.
talking a lot about retail, but I think you can do it through other means,
Right.
cultural and entertainment.
And it's under the dynamic Littleton, so
Yeah,
cultural
absolutely.
events.
And one thing we don't have, for example, we don't have a hotel,
Right.
a lodging tax. And so that, if we have one hotel, if we continue to get more, it'd be nice to have.
Well, attracting the brewery was an example of capturing regional markets, because they're going to come to us now to drink beer and eat at the restaurant.
yay, I'll be there.
And I guess that was actually one of my comments. I try to remember where I put it in the notes here. But I was going back to the tourist mentality, but like with the Brecken's Brewery, with the Alamo Draft House, using the light rail in particular to try to import more people than we export. So like right now I see our light rail is exporting workers to downtown Denver and people that go there for professional sporting events or other entertainment. I was wondering, again, it's more of a question than anything else, is could we have a goal or strategy where we actually try to make our light rail stations be net importers instead of being net exporters, is what I think of them as today?
I think you might have put that comment under Connected Littleton, because it was similar to a comment by, I think, Peggy Cole.
Oh, I
It's a
actually,
valid one.
my first time through, I've blacked out all the councilman's comments until I can understand just the base document.
Yeah, what goal are we under here? Number 2?
2.
Dynamic.
Dynamic.
Okay. Yeah, let's address your comment, Scott, when we get to number 3.
Yeah,
Goal
I'm
number
trying
3.
to find out exactly where I had placed it, but yes, we can table
Okay.
that for a bit.
So we're gonna combine 3 and 7
7.
and try to be more encompassing beyond retail and include in entertainment and other opportunities.
Number 8, I just suggest to strike the last part of that, which says, and are designed to help achieve citywide goals and protect adjacent neighborhoods. And then my last comment in this section is number 10, creative and forward-thinking solutions. That sounds like all the discussions we've been having about transformative perspective, as opposed to a strategy under a dynamic Littleton.
Well, I see number 10 is under the heading firm grasp of the obvious. What are we going to do? The exact opposite? Of course we're going to do creative and forward-thinking solutions. Why don't we just drop number 10 altogether?
I'm fine with
It's a platitude.
I'd agree.
I don't know if it's that obvious, though, in Littleton, is it?
Well, we have a
Whole section on being
we have a section
transformative
on,
and embracing change.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If you have a whole section on it, re-emphasizing it here may not hurt.
No.
But, okay.
well,
It's
not
just,
on,
then it's, where do you
Yeah.
draw the line?
let's talk about number 8. Don't we want?
Actually, I had a question on 8 and 9 kind of combined.
Yeah.
Depending, I guess, is there a really strict definition of retail versus commercial? Because one resource I checked said that retail is a form of commercial.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
So does that mean that 8 and 9 contradict each other? Because 8 is saying we want basically mixed use, so we have a highly integrated retail with housing, whereas number 9, you're saying you're trying to create a buffer?
How do you use, the zoning is really commercial.
Yeah.
Retail just happens to fall under commercial.
I think commercial use probably is retail and office typically is what you think of as commercial. I think industrial is probably a separate category again. And the thought typically is that if you're in an existing neighborhood or close to existing neighborhood, you probably want to do the residential and some retail. Office less so, I think. It probably wants to be more concentrated at other places. But, certainly open and certainly attempt to get more dispersion of offices, too, into more neighborhoods. So I think either way works.
So maybe to address that, we just exclude the including residential and retail and just leave it, provide a mix of uses and leave it more open.
Yeah.
On number 8, why do we isolate it to shopping centers? Why don't we just say underperforming properties? Because we have industrial property, we have office property that could be redeveloped into mixed use.
Absolutely.
Residential.
Well, yeah, but there's some commercial areas we don't want residential on because we have very little commercial left.
Right.
We need all we can get.
So you're saying it should be specific to shopping centers, or?
That's what we identified when we did that exercise, when we all went and identified what are the things we should focus on. And it was the underperforming shopping centers came up, I think, in all of ours as a recommendation.
It also came up in the citizen survey and also in the business survey as a high priority.
Okay.
So.
Instead of residential and retail, could we just say mixed-use development?
Yeah, that's what I suggested, so it didn't contradict, as Scott was saying. That's in number 8. Is that what you're also suggesting in number 8?
Well, when you say provide a mix of uses, it's kind of,
But mixed use typically means they're together, and there might be residential and retail and separate.
well, you can have adjacent mixed uses.
Yeah, there's vertical, horizontal.
They don't have to
and-
be touching.
Yeah, there's
But the
all kinds.
development within it has different uses. So it still would include a variety. I'm just suggesting that if you say a mix of uses, the industry knows what mixed-use development means. It means commercial, retail, office, all those things. And so it's kind of just obvious or redundant to say residential and retail, and yet it excludes office, it excludes other types of uses. So number 8, I think, is underperforming shopping centers to be redeveloped so that they provide a mix of uses.
Period.
Period.
Okay.
And we took out number 10.
Wait, so are we going to leave in the buffer then?
Now let's talk about 9.
Okay.
So define buffer.
So to me, especially if we start jumping ahead to the other sections on connectivity and walkability, because when you start saying walkability, it's one of my future questions, but to me that means you're going to start having a mix of uses inside of your residences. your residential neighborhoods. It will no longer be purely housing units. There'll be maybe whatever, some shopping, coffee shop, whatever. It's going to be inside of the residential areas. When you say walkability, that's what it means to me. So I guess that's, is that a direction that we want to go?
When I see commercial development, I think of a more high-impact development, such as the new brewery. We made sure that there's some buffer between the residential and that development, that commercial development. Okay. And I think we want to keep that in there. I see that as a more high-impact use, maybe creating more, perhaps air pollution, noise pollution, those kinds of things.
Just technically, though, is that industrial, though?
The zoning for the brewery?
Yeah. Is that industrial? It is industrial. Okay, so you still want a buffer for commercial, though?
I think considering that most of these underutilized shopping centers are surrounded by some of the existing neighborhood, of which we have plans in here that talk about preserving the single-family nature, I think that's where that wording came from. And you're right, it could be a number of things. You could put intervening residential uses, that would be a good buffer, or it could be a taller wall or landscaping. It could be a number of things.
But that does contradict with walkability and connectivity. So, so I also interpreted commercial development on high impact. Now, if we're choosing the wrong word and it shouldn't be commercial and it should be industrial, maybe that's something to consider. But this is about having significant impact to the surrounding areas in a potentially negative way, as opposed to a positive way, meaning I want to walk into that shopping area or that mixed-use area.
I think we should define it like that, be more specific, because I think it's right that commercial development is just commercial development. I mean, if we build a retail with office and apartments above it, that's not going to be buffered from each other except for maybe by some soundproofing. But if you go on to say high impact development, single family housing, and what you said about undesirability and or negative aesthetics, I don't know, something like that. Just being more specific than just commercial development and housing, because housing means low-income housing, apartments, single-family, condos, whatever. I just think it's too broad as it stands.
I mean, I like Kurt's comment about, especially the industrial. I mean, that, to me, makes perfect sense to shield from that. I mean, that, I wouldn't question that. But
If I were in a single-family neighborhood, though, I'm not sure I would want a five-story retail office residence right next to me without some buffering and perhaps even some wall in between, because I'm not sure I want that traffic back and forth between my single-family neighborhood and this kind of a property.
Paul, right? Or David, I'm sorry. He is mentioning because maybe there's some sort of thresholds that are defined. I don't know. Does that get too complicated to?
Probably for the
comprehensive plan.
Some buffering, perhaps, between commercial high-impact development.
I think what we intended, I'm sorry, would be those redevelopments. So you live behind a one-story shopping center, and now it becomes a mixed-use, multi-story. There ought to be some buffering involved for that redevelopment of that site. I think that's what we intended to say.
And I don't think it necessarily means that you cut it off from being accessible. You can still have your walking paths. You can still have those connections. It's just that you need to feel like you're not getting the negative impacts of that. You're going to get the positive impacts, but not the negative impacts of it.
So new commercial development, as we already have setbacks and requirements within the code, it has built-in buffers as part of the code. So redevelopment areas is really what we're talking about. And so maybe 8 and 9 get combined. And that, you know, the redevelopment into mixed use, and then we add to that it should be buffered. And I would actually change the word nearby housing to adjacent housing. I mean, nearby could be 3 blocks away. I would say adjacent housing, or even, I wouldn't even say housing, I'd say residential, because there's a different types of housing. So I think I would suggest that we phrase it so that we just add the buffering to number 8 with adjacent residential as the wording
And
at the
are we
end.
changing underperforming shopping centers to underperforming commercial then? Or underperforming development, right? Or underdeveloping properties, I think is what you said, Randy. Okay. So it's broader than so underperforming properties.
I would. I don't think we should limit it to shopping centers, even though that was the original impetus.
Okay, good.
But we should probably limit it to commercial, or do we want to include residential in that as well?
What are those shopping centers zoned?
Because an apartment building might be underperforming,
Right.
and that's a property, and I'm not sure we
But you
want to go down
certainly
there.
wouldn't want to say single-family neighborhood's not performing, and we're going to come in and
Right.
scrape it.
Yeah, I'm happy with the generic, just underperforming property.
Properties, yeah.
Is a vacant parcel underperforming?
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
Maybe from the city's perspective.
If you blight it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So somebody read what we think number 8 is.
underperforming properties to be redeveloped so that they provide a mix of uses and provide for buffer from adjacent residential, something like that.
How about appropriate buffering from adjacent?
Okay.
Good.
From negative impacts?
Yet
I would leave that to
determine.
the PD process.
Karina, could you say that again, please?
Yeah, read that again.
If you could try.
Try.
Underperforming properties to be redeveloped so that they provide a mix of uses and provide appropriate buffering from adjacent residential.
But aren't we opening ourselves up to underperforming, somebody mentioned apartment complexes, underperforming office parks all of a sudden get a infusion of residential? Oh, lovely. Okay, we got less tax revenue, or we got underperforming shopping centers all of a sudden become less retail. There goes our tax base, and now all of a sudden we have a massive amount of roofs with very little income. Is that what we're saying with number 8?
I thought we said mixed use was the preferred
Mixed use,
redevelopment.
and, if I were a developer, mixed use, little commercial,
But that's not
residential.
mixed. It's not mixed if it's purely residential, right?
Doesn't make it pure residential, but it introduces residential maybe where we don't want it.
We haven't talked anywhere about a balance. I guess we've had discussion, what's the appropriate balance between uses? So do we try and maintain a certain number of office uses? Is there a goal for us in terms of, what's appropriate to how many employees do we want, how many residents do we want, how many retail square feet do we want? There doesn't seem to be a number that works for that, or a percentage. It's case by case, and you have to keep. You might want something in here that does talk about what you're talking about, where you do think about having that balance, whatever that might be, that you don't lose some kind of critical mass for office or critical mass for housing, whatever it might be, that, as you rezone for other uses. I mean, that's, and we haven't said that specifically.
Well, and then in the intro there was some economic sustainability topics, right? So I'm still trying to figure out this whole document, but is there other economic sections in here anywhere? Or do we have to kind of integrate the economic into each of the individual?
Well, actually, they're there, right? So that is one strategy. So if we were to combine 8 and 9, so that's one strategy about underperforming properties and encouraging mixed use in those. But we also say our strategies are bringing in retail, making sure people can shop here. So there are other elements here that encourages economic development. I guess then the question is, are we contradicting ourselves if we continue to say we will push mixed use, we will push mixed use? If we do that, are we going to be able to achieve number 1, number 3, number 7?
I would support what Mark's saying in that not every property is appropriate for mixed use. There's some properties that are just out there that really shouldn't be mixed use. They should be single use. And so the mixed use should be an example of what it could be. Like we've done at other places, we say e.g., blah, blah, blah. underperforming properties to be redeveloped and buffered appropriately from adjacent residential. And we could add example, I don't know if we even need to state it.
What if we say a sustainable mix of uses? Sustainable meaning the city, gets revenue as needed. It sustains the city, but it also sustains the citizens by offering types of uses that they can actually take advantage of. I mean, the challenge with retail is that we may never get a one-for-one replacement with what's there right now due to the new economy that we're in, and so forth. So what that means, with a redevelopment and a mix of uses, it could be a variety of things, but at the very least, what gets approved should look to, if we need more rooftops, but we can also have some, viable retail or office uses with that, and that sustains us. I just think introducing that word might get over this thing of getting too many rooftops, but understand that we may need to look at some rooftops or some other use of retail just because retail is not going to come back in the form it was in.
Right.
Go ahead.
I know we're spending time on this, but I think this is, if anything, is an important one because it relates directly to land use and future changes in our types of projects that we have in the city.
Absolutely.
So let's work it out.
So that statement to me, so something I noticed as you said that, the word is mix of uses, not mixed use. And I think those do mean two different things. So the way I heard that statement as you just shared it was by providing a sustainable mix of uses, that means you could replace it with another retail, or it could be mixed use, or it could be commercial, or it could be anything else. So I think mix of uses is a different meaning than mixed use.
Okay, let's read that again.
Underperforming properties to be redeveloped so that they provide a sustainable mix of uses. Then I'm losing the transition. A sustainable mix of uses and provide appropriate buffering from adjacent residential.
I hear nothing.
The only thought I would have is, do you want to open up adjacent to other than residential? If you're next to a park, if you're next to, do you want to just say, since we've already said appropriate buffering from adjacent uses? If it's not appropriate to buffer it, if it's the same use, don't buffer it. If it is, then it gives you a little more flexibility than just leaving it as residential. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I believe that a comp plan should be specific, I can't even say that word, detailed enough to provide direction, but vague enough to allow for interpretation.
All right, are we done with this one then? I had another one in this list here.
We're done.
All right, so I think, well, my numbering is a little bit weird here, but I think it's number 6 on housing. All right.
Well, let me back up. Sorry, Scott.
Okay.
So, Karina, you're done?
Yeah.
Okay. This is done here.
Did we decide to strike number 10? Or
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now, where are we going?
Bullet point number 6 on housing. Because I got that Littleton community scorecard in the mail the other day. And on page 1, I was reading through there, and it was basically saying that they're projecting by 2035 that the population is going to increase by 4,370-ish. So then my question was, how are we going to house all these people? If of course, that projection is semi-accurate. And I don't know where they got the data from, or I don't know how any of it came about, but they published it, so I figured the city authorized it somehow. So then I just started going through census data, and Littleton currently is at 93% occupied houses and rental units. There's a total of 19,340 housing units, approximately 2.27 people per housing unit. So basically, I combined all those numbers together, and it looks like approximately there'll be a need by 2035 of approximately 1,925 new units.
Not necessarily. We have an aging population, and a lot of our homes are 2 people, 1 people. We haven't blended out. I've said this before. We haven't blended out our population. It's going to take another 2 or 3 generations to have the equal amount of older people, younger people, in-betweeners. So right now, Littleton's going through that wave of older people, no kids in the house. I think most of the increase in the school population will happen as the older people move out, die out, younger move in. Eventually, say, another couple of generations, it'll be blended so it stays fairly constant. So I don't know if we need to build, 3,000 or, 8,000 new housing units to meet the projection of Littleton Public Schools.
Well, so I think we have to go back to the one number then of the 2.27 people per housing unit. That's in the census data. That's where that came from, I believe. Well, actually, it came from the Littleton report. So I guess so if I interpreted what you say right, we're assuming that number is going to dramatically change then over the next, between now and 2035, so therefore housing stock is not an issue for the next 1 to 3 or 4 decades of Littleton?
It's going to be an issue, definitely.
What are you getting at?
Well, I'm getting at is basically, is this statement here, housing construction to respond to changing market demands and competition, whatever, this whole thing there, is that sufficient enough to address the Littleton's housing needs for the next 30 years? Or do we need anything more specific or more progressive? Like say we need to provide maybe 2,000 more units, or I'm just saying.
I think we want to get specific in this document about how many units. And
well, yeah, I agree.
We've already approved how many in the past 6 months?
Was it 70 at Nevada Place and
380?
Something.
So
but is this
already
statement here,
approval for another 500 that was approved years ago, right down here behind the McDonald's. Not 500. There's about 400 and some approved behind the McDonald's that nobody's ever built, but it's still there. It could start.
Okay. Well, I guess my question to the group was: is this statement sufficient enough, or do we need to say, well, we actually need to increase our housing stock, or? Like, for example, I talked to realtors and construction company people, and they all say that Littleton's housing stock is, in a certain sense, horrible. That we don't have appropriate senior housing, we don't have appropriate affordable family housing. So I hear all those comments from other people. I'm just wondering, do we need to add any of those comments into here to encourage the city to do some sort of housing stock revisal?
I think this comment
okay, you think
is
it
enough
covers that?
because
okay.
So I think there's 2 places that we address it. Under number 5. With transit, we provide more diverse housing, so that means different than what we have now. So that creates an opportunity for something different. And then number 6 does say it responds to changing market demand. So as the market is changing now, as it will change in 5 years, as it will change in 10 or 20 years, and to address the need across many ages, many different, whether it's students.
So
I think it's
so you think it's
enough.
sufficient? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that this, because it just seemed to me that, as I said, trying to understand this, it seemed a little vague to me, and I was maybe hoping for maybe saying senior-specific housing or affordable housing for families. But if this is fine, then I'm okay with that.
My comment on that would be that part of it's editorializing. It's almost sufficient to say housing construction in response to changing market demands and competition, period. Because the market demand and the competition is going to tell you what is needed. If we have a lack of new housing, then 15 years from now, that's going to come through any market study or economic development study. To go on and say, for students, for young professionals, families with children, aging demographics, is like editorializing the future. We know what the market's going to be. We just said, okay, changing markets, and now we just told you what the market's going to be. I would just put a period after competition, unless everybody thinks we need to,
I think I'm fine with as it was written.
as it's written.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I like it as it is.
Okay. Next. Scott, do you have any more comments?
No, that's it for there.
Okay. Mark, do you have any comments on what you have on your document? Or you want to elaborate on anything?
Just that under, we're going to new territory. I guess we come to the point where this is where we were 2 weeks ago, correct? Okay, because we have a number 11 here under a dynamic Littleton, and that is strengthening downtown. There wasn't a heading here.
Right, so we have two different versions.
So there is more under a dynamic Littleton. No, it's just again, it's just minor edits. Take out a plural, capitalization. Under Goal 2, Dynamic Littleton. Littleton will foster a vibrant and involving community. Again, just a little more narrative versus more cryptic sentences.
Okay.
So nothing
So
spectacular.
what happened to number 11?
It's the heading got lost, but it's further in. You have to go fish and find it.
And Dennis, I have a question on the document I printed out, the final draft. After page 5, goal 2, then it says, then it goes to the edited draft. Where's goal 3?
Oh, good question.
It,
Goal 3 is on
I
page
distilled it.
8.
It's in my narrative.
The connected Littleton on page 8.
Oh, here it is.
Okay, you have that? Yeah, I got it in my electronic version.
And then goal 4 is on page 9, a distinctive Littleton.
Oh, I see what happened, I think. Bullets A,
Format
B,
change, I
C,
think, is
D,
what happened,
E have Councilwoman Cole's comments associated with them.
Right. So we made changes to the first ones.
But the
not.
heading,
Right,
number 11, got lost.
right.
That's what happened there. So it's there, just kind of got edited
Yeah, it
out
did. Sorry, yeah.
by accident. Okay, so we're
Yeah,
down
so-
to the council members' comments, maybe? Are there any other comments that anybody might have? Okay. Let's go to where it says edited draft, and
By which version are?
the version that Dennis gave us, the final draft with the yellow
one?
highlights.
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
That one.
That one. That says comprehensive plan about 20 times on the front.
Okay.
You got happy with the title there.
Just in case.
So,
So we're now on page 7, and the one with all the
page
color.
7, and we have,
And we're adding an 11 up at the top, which is strengthening downtown by
right,
colon.
there should be an 11. Actually, number A is on page 6, below that box.
Right. Of course, it's not 11. We deleted 10 and combined, or whatever. Anyway, whatever the next number is.
Formerly known as.
Formerly known as.
Right. So, I know the new board members haven't necessarily seen the council members' comments, but for those of us who have seen them, hopefully, do you have any comments as to whether we adopt them or not, or any specific comments that were good?
Well, why don't we just go
Brett?
A, B, C, D, and see
Okay.
if any of council comments want to go in.
So A, supporting a pedestrian active street that connects Main Street and Arapahoe Community College and helps activate the neighborhood south of Little's Creek. I won't read the whole comment. You can read it. But generally, she says, Councilwoman Cole's comment was that there hasn't really been a strong connection between the college and the town, and that McDonald's happened to say that they don't get a lot of business. My comment is that doesn't mean we can't encourage it for the future and do things to make it different.
There's a market to serve. So
Right. So,
supporting a pedestrian, da-da-da-da-da.
so
And for me, the connection may be more from downtown to ACC, and that might not necessarily be in bringing people from ACC to downtown. I mean, that'd be great if it could happen, but if you basically are expanding your downtown so that when people go to downtown, they say, oh, ACC is part of our community.
Right. Well, as the downtown grows as well, the pedestrian connection from ACC, or at least south of Alamo, might be better serving the businesses of downtown, regardless of whether they're ACC students or people that can't find a place to park in downtown.
this is a 15-plus plan.
Yeah.
A lot could change.
Things
And
change.
I think the other thing you've been talking about, too, is that there is a tremendous faculty and staff base there as well. They could live in downtown Littleton, a larger downtown, want to walk to work back. So there's great potential, I think, for that connection as well as just.
And I think the role that community colleges play now versus what they played 10 or 20 years ago is different than what they potentially will play 10 to 20 years from now. So,
Okay. B, increasing housing density to help provide critical mass of residents necessary to enliven the streets and support the stores and restaurants. Increasing densities doesn't necessarily lead to shopping.
I would disagree.
I don't agree with that. You add bodies, people need to buy things.
Well, if it's the appropriate shopping.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not our
market-driven,
place
though. I mean,
to,
we're-
Right.
We don't determine that.
I
But-
understand, but yeah.
right.
If there are more people down here, there will be more shopping going on.
And you talk to the retailers and restaurant owners, and they say that, too.
Yeah.
The more people on the street, the more business they have. So.
C, achieving building heights that allow for desired density while respecting the pedestrian scale of Main Street and downtown small-town character.
Is density, just out of curiosity, is density one of those words, like I listened to one of the city council meetings, and the person came in here just kind of reaming against density. Do we want to keep the word density in there so much if it's such a hot button item, or?
No other way to describe it.
Well,
is there?
It's desired density, though. It's preceded by the word
Desired.
Okay.
It's the interpretation of the word that
What's dense?
people have different ideas of. And it's a very common planning.
I agree. I'm just saying that there is a very strong citizen group forming against anything that has to do with density.
Right. And I think it's hard to come up with another term that works as well, but we might think about doing that just because there certainly is a negative connotation for a lot of people, I think.
it's almost like you're saying it has a bad connotation, so, can we choose something else?
Okay, I got it.
It's I don't like playing politics, but I know there's this group, like when I watch city council meetings, that they're just foaming at the mouth whenever you say density.
I got a word, 2 words, 3 words. Achieving building heights that allow for a desired mass and scale while representing the pedestrian scale, well, this double use of the word scale, but mass and scale is another way to talk about density.
I like that too, because I think density isn't just tied to building height either. From what I've been reading lately, units have been getting smaller, and people have been packing more people into given units. As some of these younger millennials come up and want to live in town and kind of work and live in the same area.
And I think mass and scale, so density is an output, a result of height or mass and scale. But I think if the intent here is about preserving the small town character, it really is more about mass and scale than it is about whether it's one person in that room or 5 people in that room.
And I would change the second word pedestrian scale to pedestrian environment of the main street and downtown small town character.
Good idea.
Good with that. Can we reread this when we're all done talking about changes?
No.
Hey, you have you have a word you want to add?
Yes, called in the cloud, okay? No, I'm just, I would just like somebody.
Achieving building heights that allow for the desired mass and scale while respecting the pedestrian environment of Main Street and downtown small town character.
Okay, so mass and scale it replaces density?
Replaces density.
Okay.
D, reducing the impact of vehicular traffic on pedestrians, bicyclists. Residents are pedestrians.
Well, my comment here is I was reading through the, again, that community scorecard thing, and they're projecting 10,000 new jobs in Littleton by 2035.
Okay.
So,
Here we go.
so here's my math again. I did some more math. So 10,000 new
You're
residents.
now our data guy.
Yeah, I love data. So again, if you take that population increase of 4,400, assuming they're all working age, which obviously is not a appropriate assumption, so that's going to leave you 5,600 new commuters. Then also in that document, the scorecard, they said 78% of people in Littleton travel alone to their jobs. So that's going to leave approximately 4,370 new cars per day on the roads for going to jobs. At probably a minimum, if I'm just trying to use some very conservative numbers. So assuming that what's in that community scorecard is semi-accurate, I guess the question is do we have a plan of how to handle that? I mean, ideally, maybe we could somehow promote more public transit, mass transit, get people to live closer to their jobs. I mean, there's lots of different ways to approach it, but is there anything in this document to address that potential situation?
You're saying the increase in traffic?
Yes.
No, we're just saying let's reduce the impact of it.
But I'm saying that the actual traffic itself is going to go potentially up a lot. I don't know what the current...
Well, an all-encompassing word or planning phrase is smart streets. Smart streets address bike lanes, appropriate pedestrian corridors, street dieting, reducing lanes, medians, safe zones, all those things that help create a safer environment, plus create a more sustainable street, which addresses traffic volumes, hopefully.
And I think the other part of that, too, is that there's an underlying premise that by providing, what's the term we're using, appropriate mass and scale of new development, so if we have a little bit more concentrated development close to where the transit is, we're reducing a lot of trips by doing that. So we're getting additional people with fewer trips per person because they can use the existing infrastructure. They can use the light rail. They can use the bus system. It's easier for them to commute with one another, to carpool. Work hopefully is closer. So it's an underlying premise, I think, for the whole plan in terms of what we've been talking about with these activity areas and really you're trying to focus on a few things. So it's there.
Okay, it's there.
Yeah.
I'll trust you.
It's not as clear, probably.
Well, what about reducing the impacts of vehicular traffic through adopting smart streets? Design standards, or I don't want to be that specific, but
Yeah, I think that's critical to do that. For one thing, we can work as much as possible on reducing traffic generation within the city, but we've got this huge reservoir of traffic coming through the city on Santa Fe and Broadway and coming east-west as well. That's only going to increase over time as we get additional activity there. So we have to be able to deal with that. And so the smart streets and the buffering and everything else we're talking about, I think it helps minimize those impacts as much as we can.
you're going to have to define smart streets in some glossary or somewhere.
Good.
How would smart streets reduce impacts on vehicular traffic?
Are we trying to encourage or discourage more traffic through the city on Main Street and Alamo, say? Is that which is our goal?
I think we haven't actively encouraged more. I think we've said, we want to pick up more business, which might be more traffic, but we're trying to diversify the mode of transit, how people are getting here. So we try and minimize the trips probably, the reduction, the increase in that. But
well, what I'm thinking of is what you were
traffic.
saying what you were saying is the traffic that's going through the city, not between Santa Fe and Broadway, say.
Right.
And we could easily become Pearl Street and redirect to Bellevue if we wanted to.
Right. Yeah, sure could.
We just haven't defined that goal yet.
No.
Or are we just kind of just leaving it up to?
Well, I'm curious, does anybody think that the downtown's going to be the driving engine for new jobs in Littleton? I doubt it. It's going to be C470 in Santa Fe, South Park, those there, Enzer, you name it. Downtown, it'll bump along. It'll increase a little bit, but not to, the 4,000 new jobs coming to Littleton here are not going to be downtown.
Right, but even in that case, like I said, I'll just reiterate it just for the point, but say so Santa Fe or County Line, is our plan encompassing enough to accommodate more traffic on those roads? And I'll trust Dennis. I mean, he says, sure, then I say yes, because I'm still trying to digest all this.
We've got to be more worried about Douglas County and what they're going to stuff on Santa Fe through Littleton than what we're going to create on Santa Fe.
Does connected Littleton get into more of the, modified street? Okay. So, Kurt, what would you say on D? You phrased it.
Well, I was asking a question, actually. What does the complete streets do to reduce impacts of vehicular traffic on pedestrians, bicycles?
The whole concept of smart streets just creates a complete environment for pedestrians, bicycles, parking, traffic, as well as environment through street trees, shading the asphalt. It's more of a comprehensive look at the entire cross-section of the street. And so by doing that, the idea, and it may not necessarily be able to be done on Main Street because it's pretty well already been designed, but where it can be applied, it creates more efficiency and a better environment.
So does smart streets, does that include complete streets? And then things like smart metering and that kind of stuff? Or
complete streets, we might want to define or determine what's the right word, the more used word. Complete streets is
okay, because to me, complete streets is just, I don't know, how you lay things out. Whereas when you start saying smart, now you start to talk, that to me, I'm thinking of like smart meters where the meter rates actually change depending on how much traffic is parked there or how much. So I don't know if that's what you're thinking of with smart streets, is a more technology driven?
I think whether it's called smart streets or complete streets, this will change in 5 years and it'll be called something else.
Right.
But what is different about calling it smart streets or complete streets different than reducing the impact of vehicular traffic? That's the word I can't say. The others are a plan to integrate all of the vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle versus what this statement is specifically saying is just reduce the vehicular traffic impact on the others. So one is about integrating it more holistically, and one is saying stop doing this to allow for this. And I think what our intent should be for the downtown area is that it's more of an integrated traffic, whether it's vehicular, pedestrian, bicycling, or residents. So
I would agree, but I don't think it's limited to downtown.
No.
In this section, it is under the downtown. Oh. But I agree, it's not limited to downtown.
Yeah, we're in section 11, downtown.
Oh, under that heading, okay.
Can we reduce the conflict between the different types of vehicular traffic? Because pedestrians, bicyclists, they're all forms of vehicular traffic. Well, they're all forms of traffic, I guess, not vehicular necessarily, but. And there's always going to be conflict between those different types of moving around.
Right, the idea of creating an integrated plan, I believe, says, let's look how we can all work together, how all these different modes of transportation can be in the same place and still be a safe environment.
And I believe we do say that under connected Littleton.
Yeah.
So we can take this out of downtown and just put it as an overarching strategy and connected. and rephrase it in such a way that it's implement an integrated scheme, and then we'll work on the words, or an integrated plan, instead of reducing the impact of vehicular traffic.
I would agree to move it into the connected level 10. Any other discussion on that one? We might have to reword it when we get to connected. We've got to move fast. Diversifying sorry?
3 minutes.
Diversifying downtown businesses in order to serve a larger market while providing for the daily needs of downtown residents and employees. Yes, we can, but we can't dictate to landlords.
And are we providing for their daily needs? That seems a little...
Well, things like grocery stores, for example.
But daily needs might be something... I think support services is a better idea.
Yeah, we can't dictate what kinds of businesses in the comp plan are going to go downtown.
People need water every day. We're not going to provide that.
I think the idea is keep in mind downtown is a living area. So if you don't want people to use cars, then there should be some of those daily needs that they can walk to.
I just think support services is a better overall wording rather than daily needs, because then we get into a lot of things that have nothing to do with
what's really missing is a grocery, I guess, would be ideal.
And that's a support service. Restaurants, grocery.
Mm-hmm.
How about,
I guess if we did that, could we have a glossary defining support services then? Because I don't think of grocery stores as the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, that doesn't, what comes to mind when I hear support services is government assistance.
Yeah.
Or hospitals, doctors' offices, too.
Sure.
Well, but you might want that as well in the downtown area when you've got 8,000 new people living down here.
We're going to come back to
I think a doctor...
Oh, no, okay, no, it was 4,000...
472.
4,370.
So can we just...
In the whole Littleton, though, whole Littleton.
So instead of defining it, can we just give some examples, like e.g.? Or does that get dangerous?
Yeah, don't do
Maybe come up with just a better phrase in general. I don't know.
We also soften it instead of, we will diversify. How about we encourage diversification? Did I say that right? Of downtown businesses, something.
yeah,
The market will, we can't dictate that,
encourage a diversity of downtown businesses. Period.
Period, yeah. I agree.
We have a downtown plan.
Because, I mean, this is all market-driven anyway.
Right.
What goes downtown.
We don't need to talk about larger market and daily needs.
Just say a larger market of downtown residents, employees. Skip the stuff in between.
Yeah.
Good.
Encourage diversified downtown businesses in order to serve a larger market while providing for downtown residents and employees.
That's good.
So serve a larger market
I
is
need
beyond.
a verb there. I need for something, yeah.
So to serve a larger market is beyond the downtown residents and employees. That's what this is intended to say. Okay.
Well, still providing for...
Like the restaurants, I mean, people from out of downtown.
For the needs of downtown
Theater.
residents and employees. You don't need to say skip daily, skip support services.
Yeah.
So
Needs on-
you added encourage in front of that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get that, Dennis?
Yes, I think so.
And then just say it's providing for the needs of downtown residents and
Have
employees.
encouraging a diversity of downtown businesses. That serve a larger community while providing for downtown residents and workers or something to that effect.
Providing for the needs
For the needs
of downtown residents and employees.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Is everybody okay with going an extra 20 minutes?
No.
Yeah, we haven't gotten
Anybody
very
have
far.
to leave?
Yeah, I'd rather go.
We still would have a quorum if you left. Would you be okay with us talking with you not being here?
Give me your,
Talk amongst yourselves.
could you give me your proxy? Okay, great.
Okay. Because we really need to get this, at least the goals done, right?
Be nice.
Okay. Okay, we're
But
getting,
at this rate, you'll get about 3 more sentences every minute, so
the comments are really short now. So,
How about 9:15? We'll cut it out.
okay, 9:15 is the goal.
We're burning daylight. Let's go.
Goal number 3, be done by 9:15. A connected Littleton, enhance our internal, regional, and global connections, physical, social, technical.
By the way, it's goal number 3, not 3 and then goal. It's just.
Yeah,
like
there's
the,
some.
Need to get organized. It's goal number 3.
I like the idea
Bullet.
of taking out this conversational language. We are committed, and making it more of a, straightforward, enhance the internal, regional, and global. I don't have a problem with that unless somebody else has a comment.
Sounds good.
I have a problem with what the sentence.
With how it was edited by the councilman.
Enhance our internal, regional, global connection, physical, social, and technical.
Right.
Okay, I do. I really struggled with this sentence. Global connection sounds like an airport to me. So I have a recommendation of how to change this. Enhance.
Which number?
It's goal number 3.
Goal 3.
A connected Littleton.
Okay.
And so on my edits, my recommendation is enhance our local connections within the city and within the region through physical design, social engagement, and technology-enabled platforms.
Read that again.
Enhance our local connections within the city. That's intended to represent what internal means. Mm-hmm. And within the region through physical design. So that's our streets, our trails, anything that's physically a connection. Social engagement is to establish areas for social engagement. And technology-enabled platforms, whatever they are today to whatever they could be in the future.
I think you're limiting the words physical, social, and technological by adding things to them. Because physical connections aren't just the design of the streets. Physical connections are between people, between any two things. And I mean, I would just hesitate to limit it to just that, because I think it's a real broad statement, and I'd like to keep it that way. Maybe we could change global connections to global linkages. That's a standard connector term for markets and areas.
This global so. It
Well,
sounded,
we
like
could
an
take
it sounded like an airport to me. I didn't know how Littleton was. And I know I think our intent was that you're connected to the world because we have Wi-Fi, as an example. We have Wi-Fi, so you can always be connected to the greater world.
We could take out global. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I do like local, regional. We don't really have any global connections directly in Littleton. It's more through Denver that we can connect globally. I agree with you there. I hate to limit the words just by adding things to them.
So read that again, using the word local, but not elaborating on physical, social, and technological.
I think it's the recommendations is enhance our local and regional connections, physical, social, and technological. Technological.
Logical means, just to kind of make
Good.
That's good. Okay, last time, read it with that.
Enhance our local and regional connections through physical, social, and technological means. That works.
Strategies, they just struck out that to accomplish this. I mean, a strategy means we're going to accomplish it through I agree, take that out. Number 2, provide connections between.
I'm sorry, for number 1 there. What is the definition of walkability? Because I have at least 2 definitions in my mind that I hear people talk about. One is like physically able to go out and get exercise, so it's walkable, physically walkable. So another definition of walkability is you can actually get to all your daily living needs by walking only, so you don't have to take a car. So 2 different definitions of walkability.
I think it's the latter. If you go to the website, I think it's walkscore.com.
Yep.
I think that's what we're getting to.
Real familiar with that. Yeah.
The ability to get from one place to the other?
Just being able to get to what you need to get to, not necessarily just being able to walk down a sidewalk.
One of the council members I was at a meeting with, and his definition was physical exercise, as I understood it.
That's fine, but, and I have a problem with that around where I live, where there's not a lot of sidewalks outside my neighborhood. But what it does is limit me from going to those linkages that I need to get to without having to drive my car. So I would say walkability just generally, at least in my mind, means being able to get to where you need to get to.
Well, it's also comfort, safety. That's built in, too.
Exactly.
And whether or not there are sidewalks or not is a means of making it walkable. Or
That's
methods.
one way. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be sidewalks. I just use that as an example, but
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I agree, it's the latter.
It could be a one of those moving walkways.
Aberdeen Village, where I live, there's no sidewalks whatsoever, and it's a very comfortable place to walk. People walk in the streets.
True. If the street isn't busy, then.
It's not busy.
Yeah, that's true.
It's designed that way, right?
Yeah, that's great.
If we're having a glossary, perhaps this could be in there as well.
Yeah. Walkability defined somehow. Yeah, it's very commonly used right now. Provide connections between commercial development and adjacent neighborhoods. The question is, what does connections mean?
Well, if we define walkability, I don't know that we need that second part.
It can mean anything, whatever it requires it to be connected.
In a way, it allows for a wide variety of interpretation.
Yeah, so I think the answer here would be yes. Yes.
Very good.
Number 3.
Well, so if we go back to 1 again, I'm sorry. So for walkability, so if we've all agreed that it's getting to your daily living needs. Mm-hmm. So does that mean, because when I read 1, when I see that what's saying to me is that residential neighborhoods are now going to have non-residential uses in there, so I can get to my daily living needs within my neighborhood.
Not necessarily. It's just that it's easy to walk to those. It
So
doesn't have to be in your neighborhood.
if the grocery store's 10 miles away and I can walk there, that's sufficient?
Not necessarily, but it doesn't have to be in your neighborhood. Like
Well, then
you
it's
have-
not a walkable
you have-
neighborhood.
So let's say you have 300 houses and you have sidewalks all through there, and down a couple streets, like half a mile away or a mile away, is a grocery store.
Well, yes, that would be probably within range, but there, I think if you look at the maps of Littleton, there's 3 grocery stores inside the city limits, or no, 4. There's that new one that just went in. So, but could, for example, every resident walk to a grocery store within, I don't know, you got to find the distance, 2 miles?
Not right now. That's why we have this in here.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So when I read this, what it's saying to me is that our residential neighborhoods are now going to have other types of uses inside of those residential neighborhoods.
Not necessarily.
No.
But then it's not a walkable neighborhood.
It doesn't go ahead.
I just interpreted it as, I think of on the corner of Bulls and Platte Canyon, you can only walk on one side of the street. It makes it hard to navigate because it's not walkable. That's what
Yeah, we're not.
But that's the first definition of just physical exercise, physically.
It's not saying walkable neighborhoods. It's saying increase the walkability of our neighborhoods, plural.
And it's not saying that every neighborhood is going to have every use that they need.
Right, so then we're going back to the first definition of neighborhoods are safe to walk around and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's
to get
a
to where you
physical
need to go.
exercise definition of walkability.
Not necessarily, because you might be walking to the grocery store. You might not be walking for exercise. You're walking to the grocery store, but it might not be right within your neighborhood.
Walking to a school? Or a church?
Sure.
Walking to your neighbor.
Neighbors?
For the sake of time,
Yep.
unless there's any objections, I say we keep it the same.
Don't worry, we're going to go over this about 5 more times.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time to see it again.
And
Am I
actually,
right?
think point two-
Yes.
All right.
And I think something to just remember in all this, again, the overarching goal is to provide connections locally, regionally, physically, socially, et cetera. So that's kind of the overarching goal. And then there's a number of strategies in order to achieve that. So one strategy alone doesn't solve for all of that, just like one strategy alone doesn't apply to the whole city. So I think that's a way to also look at the document, that there's a series of strategies that allow us to accomplish that goal.
Okay. Number 3, I have a comment on myself. Upgrade and augment the number of existing pedestrian connections. It's either upgrade and augment existing pedestrian connections.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure what the number of refers to or
Good.
how it elaborates.
Provide more?
Just take out the number of.
Yeah, take out the number
Yeah.
of.
Upgrade
It's
and
just
augment
existing
the
pedestrian connections.
Good. Or just pedestrian connections, okay.
Number 4, it's a rewrite. Modify streets, sidewalks, and signage to accommodate harmonious multimodal uses.
We should add segues to this.
Personally, I don't care for the examples because that,
Skateboards and
Limits
rollerblades, I
it.
mean?
I mean,
Well,
whatever it is
why do we need
whatever you can come up with.
Yeah, right. Just
Yeah.
take them out.
Well, the one I want added on there is low-speed vehicles, but
I mean, you
we
could
can just
add
get rid of the
any
whole list
number of
here and
things.
just,
So modify street, sidewalks, and signage to accommodate harmonious, I'm not sure what harmonious is.
I don't like that word.
I don't like that word.
Kumbaya.
To accommodate multimodal.
To reduce the,
Not the pedestrians getting in the way of the cars or the cars getting in the way of the pedestrians. You know, it's, we're
or reduce conflict
Accommodate
between.
says the same. Accommodate
Yeah.
says the same thing as harmonious.
Any objections to taking out the examples?
Yeah,
Yes, please
and the
take
word
them out.
harmonious.
And is there another word for multimodal? That's planarese.
Variety of.
Love that word.
Yes,
like
'cause you're them.
Modify street, sidewalks.
So that is, does that mean you're
To
combining a
accommodate-
bicycle
well,
with
if you
a
add
rollerblade?
multimodal to the glossary,
Do both. My rollerblades are right.
We're going to have our own glossary to this content.
At the same time.
Okay, multimodal stays in there for now. We got to move on.
Is there another word for multimodal?
Think about it and give it to Dennis.
All right, we got to come up with another
Number
word.
5, use pictorial graphics.
What the-
Why is that in there?
I didn't even know what is it? What is
Use
it?
pictorial graphics.
So you don't have to
signage.
speak English to read it, like, apparently.
I don't know if that's specifically for the downtown to help.
Welcome to
wayfinding.
downtown.
Is this environmental wayfinding? Is that a better?
Yeah. Is this an ad? Did somebody add, did the council member add this?
That is, 4 is an add
That's
too,
an
I
add.
think, and then a rewrite.
Councilwoman Cole added that statement.
Is it,
So maybe
agree
we
we should
address
take
it
it
somewhere
out.
else. And we did talk about giving greater presence to certain areas of the city. Welcome to downtown Littleton, welcome to the medical corridor, historic landmarks. So how do we do that? And where's the right place to do that? Is it in connected Littleton?
I think it is,
I
because
think
part of
it is,
connectivity
because
is signage and communication and environmental graphics.
Directing you through points of interest, essentially, in the city. And I think that was the intent of this number 5. I just don't know that it's doing it well.
But doesn't 4 say that too? Modify, I mean, originally it was
Related to the
improve.
multimodal, though.
But it says signage, improve
Right, but-
street sidewalks and signage.
But I think they were, I mean, it seems to be related to multimodal uses, like maybe signs that have little cars on them, or electronic parking here, or electronic car parking here.
How about just, increase the use of,
well, I think wayfinding in Littleton is currently hard. So whether it's like a big map of the city, you know, like some cities you go to, and like every couple corners there's a big map saying you are here, and gives you the map of all the other buildings in the, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 blocks.
So we need to come up with something that,
How about enhanced wayfinding
That's,
through
yeah.
environmental graphics?
Just enhanced wayfinding was fine for me. Just
throughout the city or in downtown?
But this is specifically referring to, I think, the signage.
Define environmental graphics.
That's the way I read this.
Define environmental graphics.
It could be signs, it could be monumentation, it could be, it depends on whether you're in the car at street level or whether you're walking, so.
Yeah.
It could be in the concrete.
And I guess the question would be, is that too specific, do we think, for the comp plan? Whereas I think enhancing wayfinding may be, sufficient for the comp plan, and then how you do it, maybe later on in terms of actual implementation. But
Are we just trying to say increase the use of some kind of signage? So we probably need an adjective in front of that.
I think just increased wayfinding.
Is that?
Let's put that in there because we're going to have to elaborate later if we have to. I mean, we need to move on.
Okay.
At least it's in there to talk about. So let's do the last 3 with hopefully not a lot of discussion. And then, Dennis, we're going to have to kind of work on what you think is best for goal number 4.
okay.
I don't see a lot of comments over there, but so number 6, provide public gathering places and support public use of those spaces.
The only comment I made here is I think this belongs in dynamic Littleton, but I don't, it's neither here or there. I'm fine either.
It's connected, I mean, connecting people
Yeah, that's fine.
in
I'm fine with
public
that.
places.
I'm fine with that.
Number 7, generate a creative and comprehensive system that provides direct, that's
wayfinding.
number 5.
That's wayfinding.
Delete number 5.
There you go.
And let's work on number 7. Generate a creative and comprehensive system that provides directions within the city.
You want to call that wayfinding too?
Provides wayfinding.
Well, I think the thought was, and this might actually came from Jenny, is that it's both maps, like a big placard sort of thing, as well as like an iPhone app or whatever. There might be multiple ways of doing it, but yeah, maybe that could, I don't know, maybe it's all brought into wayfinding.
I think 7 is clear the way it's written.
Yeah.
Right.
Last, number 8, integrate cutting-edge information. What is the cutting edge? And communication technology throughout activity areas. And my comment on that was, to the general reader, an activity area is very vague. I know we're supposedly going to have maps or a definition of what those are.
Yeah, that we will, because we get into the activity areas, we define them more specifically, and we'll have a map that shows the ones that you guys identified in the work session.
Why not just throughout the city?
Sure.
Why does it have to be limited to activity areas?
What if there's no
Great.
activity in those areas?
Well, then the market will not put it in.
Through the city is good. I think that's.
Okay.
And now, I think it was Taylor that says, what does this mean? Which,
Yeah.
that's what, activity area, what is that? So getting rid of that makes sense.
Okay, I think the transformative things were just more grammatical or presentation edits, so we're not, Dennis, you can handle that, and you can handle goal number 4.
I just have a question back on this goal number 1 we were just discussing, this public gathering spaces and public use of those spaces. Were we just talking about that earlier around the open space and the development and things like that? Are we being redundant with what we were talking about? briefly when we were talking about the South Suburban,
Oh, the master plan?
well, that whole section that
Yeah.
was talking about.
Which one are you talking about?
We were just talking about, my numbering's a little messy.
Yeah, I think it's number 6 on our electronic copies. It got renumbered to number 1.
Yeah, I think the intent initially was to think about these public gathering places as more hardscape, more places downtown, rather than what we were talking about earlier, which was kind of the natural areas, the places along the river, places along the creek, where we have those. If I'm answering correctly, is that what you were thinking of? That makes sense? That this is actually, places where people could meet downtown, whether it's some kind of, and then I think it's also talking about public use of those places, so we actually do have the events, that we actually support having the fairs and the parades and the stuff that we have downtown, and other places too.
Are there any other comments before we
Just
close out?
I just have 2 reminders for Dennis. So Dennis, did you take a note that D from page 7 is now moving to Connected Littleton?
Good, yes.
And then we never came back to address Scott's comment of using light rail as a net importer of people to the city. And we thought we would talk about it at Connected, but I don't see it coming through in Connected.
Okay.
And maybe if you just send that comment to
Well,
Dennis.
and we had David's kind of larger question too, in terms of, do we just accept the traffic that's coming our way, or do we try and do something about it? So, if I understood your earlier question, kind of, so.
And I don't know what the answer is, because I think in some cases businesses are going to want more traffic, and in some cases not.
Right.
I think they want slow traffic.
Well, yeah, and we could widen it. But the problem is if we narrow the streets to slow
Carolyn's
traffic,
parking in
then
front of her business.
then they'll just go around. Which I don't know if that's good or bad, but.
Thanks for staying longer. Are we supposed to do, like we did last time, a presentation or a summary maybe?
Well, I guess I think the idea is to go through this. I don't know if we want to show it in a format like this where they combine both the written comments, or
We just want
need a clean one, I think.
clean it up, and this is it.
No,
just what we got, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you,
Yep.
whatever issues.
clean up all the comments, it's just readable from beginning to end.
Okay.
But I think it'd be good to show them the 53 pages, or getting volume now.
Yeah. We heard
They only got 3
we
pages
made it
last
really
time.
long.
Yeah, you like to pad things, I see.
Yeah. So you, I guess, are going to allow us to make these changes and do another final draft that we'll send out to council and you prior to May 6th then?
Will you send it out to us before you send it to council?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, definitely.
We didn't discuss goal 4, but I had just some editing comments. Take them or leave them. I really didn't edit the actual thoughts. I just edited the content. Just the.
Okay, great, thank you.
Got that?
I've got it, we'll do it.
Okay.
I appreciate it, Mark, thanks.
Well, thanks to everybody, and
Great.
see you
Yes,
next.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
We were already motioned out.